paper.
That whole square, Sue.
In the next rectangle.
Yes.
Now, you won't probably be able to see what I've done, but you probably can see a bit, but let me just zoom in again.
Actually, shall I turn it sideways and see if that works?
No, it's fine.
I mean, should I use the iPad one? Let me just check.
No, this is fine. Look, I've zoomed in.
Oh, okay.
Can you see?
Yes.
What?
Whoops.
No, I think we need to see it from the side.
That's it.
All right, well, you can do it with the iPad if you want, yes.
I'll try.
Try spotlighting with the iPad. But I think I can see it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I can't see it there so clearly.
I think it's better with the camera, actually.
Okay, I'm going back.
Okay.
That's better, yeah.
No.
Now, before it dries, it's really important it doesn't dry. So we've got to go straight back into your blue. Put some blue in your brush, not too much, and then just present the tip of your brush into that wetness and just drop it in. Okay, and I'm also going to do it in the middle here where I put the water. Now, I'm going to wash my brush out and I'm going to pick up these little pools of colour because I don't want any surplus colour. If anything, I want less rather than more. I'm letting the brush just draw some of that wet colour up on the very edge where it meets the white. Okay, now I want you to do this exactly the same in the next rectangle along, but instead of leaving a shape for the white, I want you to put water over the entire rectangle. And then I'd like you to just really carefully blot it, but don't blot it too hard. You don't want to take off all the water, just take off the surplus. And then repeat with the brush the same sort of shapes that you drew in the one next to it and see what happens. If it runs a bit, that's fine.
Sorry, Sue missed a bit. Is this wet on dry?
No, it's wet on totally wet.
Wet on totally wet. Oh, you wet the whole square?
Yes.
Even though you're not painting on the whole square?
No.
Okay. Sorry about that.
All right.
So could you move the board so that we can see the top corner there of the one you've just painted?
Sorry.
That's better.
It's
Other way.
there. Yeah, that's
Other way.
it. Thank you. Thanks.
Now, I think this one is more in keeping with wet into wet. Can you see how it sort of crystals at the edges where it meets the white? And I think that's much more in keeping with wet into wet. I think this, this looks too controlled.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this does take a bit of practice because obviously you want the colour to go where you want it to go. So it has to be not absolutely soaking wet, but on the other hand, it mustn't be too dry in order for this to work well. So both of these are wet into wet, but this first one is leaving paper, okay?
Mm.
This is wet into wet, very wet into wet.
Can I use a paper towel to sort of get rid of some of the blue? And
Yes, that's what I did. I did actually take some of it out with a paper towel. Now, in the classes with Prue and Chris and Shireen, what we also did, didn't we, Prue? We used the paper towel to lift the white out.
Yes, we did.
And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it isn't. I'm going to just try a little bit, although, you know, bear in mind, you just have to be a bit careful because you can lose that lovely softness doing this. So if you want to bring the white back in a bit more, you can just use your, you can roll your paper towel and just lift a little bit out, like that. You see?
Yeah.
So I've just rolled it into a little kind of, what do you call these things, Prue? You know where you have rolled paper?
Wait.
Oh, I can't remember.
No. Well, anyway, I've rolled the paper towel up, and you can just lift out little bits more of the paint, so you bring the white back in again. And it's quite a nice sort of thing to do when you're doing cumulus clouds, which is what we're actually really practicing a bit here.
And is it okay to drop more paint in after you've done that?
Try it. I think what can happen when you start dropping too much paint in is you can get an edge on it like this one here, which I think I did this yesterday. It was too wet.
Yeah.
And you get this horrible little edge thing occurring, as it dries. So just be careful.
In fact, you're
Angela
right.
sent me a lovely flower study she did the other day, and I think in your flower, Angela, you dropped wet into wet, didn't you? You put another colour back into the wet colour, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what you could do, and I would wait before doing it, is we could drop some of the brown colour in over the top of this and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, if you would like to try that, some of you can wash your brush out, go into the brown, take a bit of brown up, and then just try dropping a little bit of brown on that. The thing is, it's so wet, this blue. I don't know how well it's going to work, but you can do this. Look, you can actually drop the brown over the blue, over the wet blue. But what it's doing is it's moving away from the wet colour, which is interesting. But it's quite nice. I mean, I think, you can exploit these sort of techniques. I'm not brushing the paint. I'm just literally dropping the colour onto the wet paint. Again, just remember to keep it really passive what you're doing. Okay, now I've still got some brown on my brush, and what I'm going to ask you to do before we work on the bottom area is to do the equivalent of what I've done here, which is to take the brown and put a shape over the top of the dry blue. So what you draw or paint in is up to you. It can be, again, a kind of cloudy shape.
Could you say that again, please?
I'm just taking the brown and I'm now going over that dry blue rectangle that we did earlier on, just with a bit of the brown. That's this here, okay?
Yep.
It doesn't matter what shape it is, it? Does it, Sue?
No, no.
Good, because I'll go over my fingerprint.
Lovely. And then do the same with the one next to it, but wash your brush and do it with the blue. So over this first brown one, draw a shape, but blue over the brown. Okay.
So we're going on to dry, aren't we, Sue?
Yes.
Wet on to dry.
This is wet on dry. Both those boxes there are wet on dry, aren't they?
Yes.
Whereas these other two are definitely wet on wet.
Yes. And my colour was right when it dried. My brownie colour
Was what?
was the right colour
Good.
when it dried. It
Good.
wasn't when it was wet, but it is now.
Good. Well, that's marvellous.
Just to let you know. Thank you.
No, that's good. I'm glad, because that often happens, you know. It can look all very wrong when it's dark, when it's wet.